You got to watch shorts to view.
For quite some time, Candace Owens has been adamant about Brigitte Macron being born a man.
The First Lady, Brigitte Macron, was actually born Jean-Michel. So Brigitte is actually John Michael. John Michael lived as a man for 30 years, fathered 5 children, okay, and then transitioned at the age of 30 to become Brigitte. It is time for you to wake up. So we will start from the top here with a photo of Brigitte Macron. Real name, Jean-Michel Trogneau. That person that you are looking at on the right is not a woman, okay? Here is a photo, by the way, just over the years, Jean-Michel Trogneau, as he became Brigitte. As I said, the evidence for this is overwhelming. That second photo, I believe they found a photo of him at a pride parade when he was just living as a homosexual man. That next photo is when the transition began, if I recall correctly, and that's a photo from the professor years. And the professor years of Brigitte Macron is when he statutorily Emmanuel Macron.
France initially tried to silence Candace Owens in the beginning by attacking her website, and then the media tried to assassinate her character.
You have no idea. Just an hour ago, our new website, CandaceOwens.com, which we launched in part so we could live stream just this sort of content, underwent a very aggressive DDoS attack from France. Just last week, by the way, the media tried to paint me adjacent to a school shooter. I'm not kidding. Almost this last-ditch pathetic DDoS attack on my character, except around the world. And of course, there is the legal threat that arrived to me from Élysée Palace. I guess my question is, what is everybody so afraid of? It certainly cannot be a lie that has warranted this type of panic.
This caused such a controversy that it led to the president of France writing her a letter imploring her to stop.
Receiving a legal letter from a sitting president of a foreign country is extraordinary. So extraordinary that it may have never happened before in human history, okay? A year ago, when I said that I would stake my entire professional career on the fact that Brigitte Macron, the current First Lady of France, was born a man, there were many people, of course, who did not believe me because that just sounds crazy. But even those people, thanks to Emmanuel Macron's strongly worded letter, which he had his legal team put together and asked me not to publicize, are now starting to pay a little bit of attention. Take this comment from popular Canadian YouTuber and lawyer who goes by Viva Frey. He wrote this under the episode regarding that letter. I was very skeptical at first that Brigitte was a man, but I've got to tell you, Macron's lawyers are really starting to convince me. Legally speaking, it was an implausibly stupid move what they did, okay? While refusing to just plainly state that Brigitte Macron, the current First Lady of France, was indeed born a woman, they used all sorts of tricky language to suggest that they could sue me for defamation over minor errors that I made in my reporting. Okay, essentially, they were not addressing the substance of the claim. Brigitte Macron was born a biological male, but instead attacking things like, you said in an earlier report that a picture from Brigitte's communion was recolorized. This is false. This reporting has caused Brigitte to have mental anguish. Okay. But as I said, their lawyers made a critical mistake because in order to prove defamation, you have to prove that somebody acted in reckless disregard for the truth, that they knew the truth and they made a decision not to publicize it. Instead, they wanted to just publicize lies, which is something that if you guys watch this show, you know that I do not do. I do not engage in it. Quite the opposite. So by sending me a legal letter, they unintentionally provided me with a direct line, a direct link to ask Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel Macron pointed questions. They can't pretend they didn't see our questions.
Even other bloggers like this one.
It's Jean-Michel Trogneau at 18 years old. There's no room for doubt. After a year and a half of procedures, the Jesuits finally gave us a photo. And so there we see Jean-Michel Trogneau, and when we compare him, it's very striking since we actually see distinctive signs which aren't misleading, notably below the mouth and this thing here, which looks like a mole or a pimple.
Recent discussions have emerged regarding French First Lady Brigitte Macron. One of the focal points of these claims is a particular photograph of a young person wearing glasses, which some observers argue bears a strong resemblance to Brigitte Macron today. Supporters of the theory have pointed to facial similarities, including matching dimples and marks on the face. However, no concrete evidence has been presented to substantiate the idea that Brigitte Macron and the person in the photograph are the same individual. Brigitte Macron herself has strongly denied these claims, and they have been widely dismissed as conspiracy theories by mainstream media.
And this one are all starting to take notice of the conspiracy.
I actually don't even know how to process this. I've been watching Candace Owens and she's been deep diving into this insane conspiracy about the French president, and it's unreal. So here's the deal. Candace Owens believes, she knows that the French president is married to a trans woman. And not just any trans woman, but his own father. His father. I know that it sounds insane, but this woman has been researching for over a year to prove that. So here's evidence number one. So Candace dug up old records and found that there's actually no trace of this woman, no birth certificate, nothing. And even her school years didn't add up. Students say they never heard of her. Records are missing, and there's zero trace of a young Brigitte. Which brings me to piece of evidence number two, where things get even crazier. Candace found an old article from the 70s about Macron's father, talking about how he disappeared for a period of time, only to return looking different. And old family photos show Macron's father at the time, after he reemerged after being gone, to have strange resemblance of Brigitte, Macron's current wife. But at that time, he was presenting as a man. Basically, the theory is this. Macron's father legally and physically transitioned into Brigitte, and then later they fell in love with their own son and married him. And because they're so powerful, the entire story was just wiped clean until now. And Candace Owens is just getting savage. She's not holding back at all. Meanwhile, Macron's team is just scrambling to do damage control. Reports even claim that the French press has been warned not to even touch this story. Honestly, I don't even know what to do with this information. My brain is freaking melting, because if this is true, if this is even half true, this would be one of the biggest political cover-ups in history.
Also, France local media tried to do a short history or autobiography on Brigitte Macron and were shut down every time they tried to investigate her history.
Actually, people on the left, a Vanity Fair reporter, was trying to do a puff piece on Mrs. Macron and fell on a hole. She was just like, I can't find anything about this person. This is crazy. Why can't I? And then then another woman who was a Holocaust documentarian, this is basically like the BBC of France. This woman is fully on the left, again, doing this piece because she's like, this is a historic election. Brigitte Macron has got so much power. And she gets called into the Élysée Palace. Okay. And she came out and was like, they wanted to know who she was speaking to, trying to find anything about her. They told her exactly who she could speak to. And she was like, I felt like I was under interrogation. So these were people who are like celebrated in the mainstream journalists who were trying to honor Brigitte, who suddenly were like, something is not right. I've never seen anything like this. You feel like you're going to get arrested for asking any questions. And that's where the story begins.
Now, Candace Owens is saying that the fate of the Russian and Ukrainian war could possibly be in her hands. All she has to do is stop talking about President Macron's wife. This has to be serious. If President Macron is asking President Trump for assistance in getting Candace Owens to stop talking about his wife, Brigitte Macron.
Something happened all the way back in February, and I was sworn to secrecy temporarily. And I feel that today is the correct day to inform audiences because it may have some severe global implications. So here is what happened. All right. I received a very strange message from a friend of mine. I'm not going to identify that friend, but the message specifically read, "Hey, I have something to tell you from the White House. They asked me to call you. I'm just the messenger here." And he says, somebody very high up at the White House has asked me to ask you if, as a favor, you could stop speaking about Brigitte Macron. Like, what? Excuse me? To be clear, we had, ironically, as a podcast, we had just ended our Brigitte Macron series 4 days earlier on February 20th. That's when we released the last episode, which was the epilogue. So I'm going, that doesn't make sense. Why am I getting this phone call now? And obviously I ask for a little more information. I say, who specifically called you? And that friend of mine says, it's somebody that has the president's ear. This is somebody important. And I tell my friend, go back to that person and just say, I said no. It's free speech. This is obviously an important story to me. The implications here are pretty severe about what I've uncovered. So no deal. When I checked online, I realized that Emmanuel Macron is in Washington, D.C. February 24th. He is in Washington, D.C. And he had departed the White House just hours before I received the call. when I call that person back, they tell me something that is even stranger. Emmanuel Macron is holding up negotiations to end the Russian and Ukrainian war unless you stop speaking about his wife. And I'm just going, what? So I say, we ended the conversation. I say, I'm going to sleep on this. It's a lot to process. I remember I get into bed and I just turn to my husband and I say, no one will ever believe us. It matters. Like this actually, the truth just matters at the end of the day. But also, like, if I could end the Ukrainian and Russian war, and by just stopping this conversation, I would do it. Anyways, I sleep on that. Anger is subsiding. Wake up the next morning. It's February 26th, and I am sitting in the makeup chair, and I get another message that's like, hey, keep your phone on. And anyways, this phone call is coming from Florida. I pick up the phone, and lo and behold, so here's what happened. I'm negotiating this thing. I'm negotiating Ukraine and Russia, and you wouldn't believe how many parts are part. It is President Donald J. Trump. He is calling me, and in true President Trump fashion, he jumps right into the narrative. We're not, hey, how you doing? He just like jumps right into the narrative of exactly how this went down. I am literally, it is hard to catch my breath to comprehend that 4 days ago, I'm ending a series about Brigitte Macron, and now I'm speaking to the President of the United States, and the topic of conversation, no matter which way you want to slice it, is about Macron's wife's penis. I mean, there's no other way to say it, right? Anyways, I like Macron. We're speaking at the White House, and I'm walking him to his car, and, he says to me, Mr. President, can I speak to you for a second? I say, of course you can speak to me about anything. What's going on? And Macron wants to have a little sidebar. And then Macron says to him, Mr. President, do you know Candace Owens? And I say, yes, of course I know Candace Owens. What's going on? And then he continues his narrative and he tells me that Emmanuel Macron is requesting to his face that I stop speaking about his wife. And one of the things Trump said is like, he tells me, she's old and this is really, really impacting her. And then he said, I saw her, Candace, I saw her up close and she looks like a woman to me. I had dinner with her at the top of the Eiffel Tower. And I explained to him that she has had this amazing doctor who specializes in transgenderism surgeries or feminization procedures. I'm talking to the President of the United States about this, guys. This is crazy. This is wacky. And I said to Trump, and I will be honest, that at that moment I realized that one day this is going to go into my autobiography. And so I got to say something funny. And I said to him, respectfully, Mr. President, it's not my fault that he married someone with a penis. He then tells me, we're really close to getting this thing done. And he throws in the art of the deal type stuff. He starts complimenting me. He said, Melania loves you. She says, you're so beautiful. She thinks you're so beautiful. I said, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Compliments will get you everywhere in life is my mentality here. And then I say to him, what I've agreed to already in the back of my head. I say, look, I'm happy to do this for the short. Obviously, I don't want to have on my conscience that less Christian men could have died in the East if I just shut up about something. But I'm very clear to him that this is going to be short term, and that I fully expect that in a few months I will be able to speak about this. He was about to commit to that, but then it felt to me like someone in the background was like, no. We need this conversation to stop altogether. And then he doesn't say no or yes, but he just says, that he really needs to work with Macron long term, and they have this long working relationship. And I was very clear, this is not long term for me. Like, if you're close to this deal, ink it, let's get it done. And then he sort of offers at the end, he says, hey, maybe I can come on your podcast one day. I'm great for ratings. They're so Trumpian to give yourself a compliment. So I give him the Trump right back. And I say respectfully, Mr. President, I'm apparently good for ratings too, because you've got a leader of a country, the president of the country, asking you to ask me to do a favor. So.
Is Candace Owens fabricating this story? Will she stop talking about President Macron's wife? Or could there be some truth behind this after all?
Look, you got to watch Shorts to View all the time, anytime, overtime, under time, between the time. Shorts to View. That's how Johnny Cake said. Ha!